The Baltimore Ravens needed a bounce-back win, and they absolutely got it. We talk about how the Ravens were able to pull off a big win over the Los Angeles Chargers and how they changed the landscape in the process. So let more coming next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here on this Monday night, almost Tuesday morning, making Locked On Ravens both a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day, free and available for you, all podcasting platforms. That does include in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, also in audio form, where you can follow along and subscribe as well. Of course, we have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage for you, including going live after every single Ravens game like we are right now. Baltimore with a big bounce back performance. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. We're going to start the season with a bigger turn on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet. You're going to start with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. 30-23, the final score. John Harbaugh victorious over Jim once again. And me being an oldest brother, I can fondly say that the older brother always wins. And that is what we saw here tonight from John Harbaugh's squad. And it was a little dicey at the very beginning there with the defense letting up the opening drive touchdown to Justin Herbert and company, but the Ravens bounced back in a really big way. And this win is massive, and I was hyping it up all week on the show if you were listening, and I said, look, this is a massive game for multiple different reasons, and this team went out there, and look, there are complaints, but I thought that they did a lot well in this contest. So we'll obviously talk about the offense, talk about the defense, the whole 9 yards. I think, first of all, where we have to start, Lamar Jackson just continues to find ways to be clutch when it matters. There were a couple of moments early in the game. The offense just sometimes early. In fact, it's been more than sometimes early. The slow starts can be a little bit concerning on the offensive side of the ball, where it just feels like nothing is going right for them. And the Ravens have been held scoreless in the first quarter in 5 of their last 6 games. That's stuff that if you want to establish momentum, you got to be able to get out of some of your old bad habits like that. And we did see throughout the contest, I know that Carl Sheffers and his crew, not usually known for throwing penalties or getting all flag happy, but let's start there, because it seemed like late in the game, the Chargers offensive strategy was just, oh, hey, screw it. Flag's down there somewhere. Let's just go down and see if we can draw a flag. And it worked for him late. It resulted in an onside kick. But look, there were some pretty ticky-tacky calls on both sides in this game, but then there were some real ones as well. 16 total penalties in this game. The Ravens 9 for 102, another poor penalty performance from them. Chargers 7 for 62. So obviously still Baltimore has to tighten up in that regard. I'm not trying to shy away from that fact whatsoever, but you still have to be able to go out there and do your job and perform at a high level. And look, this was a game that when you're fighting with a team for playoff seeding, for AFC standing. Now, this game against the Ravens, they took advantage of a bad Pittsburgh loss. This is exactly like that. Pittsburgh loss would have been all for naught, right? All for naught if the Ravens hadn't done their job, came out, and won this game. If they didn't do that, it would have been, Pittsburgh lost, but so did Baltimore. And we'll talk about this a little more in the second part of the show, and we talk about, to me, how big of an AFC-changing win this was for the Ravens. But it's just such a big deal that they got the job done here for their own playoff standing. And when it comes to seeding as well, that's going to be big, because there are a couple of teams that Baltimore matches up very well with that this win puts them in prime position to play, whether they win the North or they don't. But getting back into the game in general, Lamar on the day, 16-22, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Certainly missed some throws along the way, but had a bunch of big ones as well. Bunch of big plays also in terms of his rushing touchdown, and a couple of he amazes me every single week. And I know we're all kind of numb to it when it comes to him juking out somebody really impressively or making a cool play that only picks up 2 yards, but he goes and he runs around for 50 and makes a play. He had a couple of plays in this game where there was pressure in his face almost immediately. And he just jukes a guy out, guy touches earth, and he goes and makes something happen out of it, gets a little check down option. And that's just the beauty of what Lamar Jackson can give you. Because I've been saying, if you've been listening to me here all week on Locked On Ravens back last week, what I was saying was it's a multi-step plan to bring down Lamar Jackson. First of all, you have to beat the Baltimore offensive line, but then you actually have to get Lamar Jackson on the ground. And getting Lamar Jackson on the ground, and not to mention even throwing Derrick Henry in that conversation, getting those two guys on the ground, those are two of the hardest things in football. And honestly, in my opinion, they are 1 and 2. There are no two harder things in the league than bringing down Lamar Jackson and bringing down Derrick Henry. So I don't think Lamar was like a huge storyline in this game. Obviously, he made a bunch of winning plays and, left a couple out there. But again, great throw to Bateman and an incredible catch on that play by Rashad too, man. That was unreal. Put these balls into places where guys could go and get them. But obviously, I see it in the comments a bunch. The big story here, Derrick Henry, nearly 6 yards a carry. And there were times in the game where I was wondering, all right, Derrick Henry gets a big gain on 3 or 4 straight runs, and then they take him out of the game. What are we doing here? Though there were moments like that. But overall, Derrick Henry got the job done. And of course, the Ravens were trying to run clock control, trying to bleed the clock out. And they did it with the king himself. 24 carries, 140 yards for Derrick Henry. No touchdowns. Very unfamiliar scene here for the Ravens. No touchdowns for this team. But then you have Justice Hill, who had 4 for 55. Lamar Jackson, not really a factor in the run game. Obviously did have the touchdown run. That was his big play there. But the Chargers did a pretty good job of containing Lamar on the ground. But that's not really been Lamar's game for most of the season, right? He's not running nearly as much as he has. And honestly, that's kind of an afterthought. We're like, yes, the threat of him on the ground is still very real. The gravity, as we talk about of that, is still very, very real. But at the end of the day, what you have is a player that can annihilate you in so many different ways. So Baltimore averaged 5.7 yards per carry on the ground. The two running backs, Henry, I mentioned, 5.8. Justice, 13.8, including that incredible 51-yard play. And again, Justice wasn't really getting much going on the ground other than that. He had 4 for 55, and one of those was a 51-yard play. So you do that math. The other carries were 3 for 4 yards. But what I noticed out of this Chargers group is something I've noticed all year from defenders is guys just do not want to tackle Derrick Henry. You saw these guys going for weak leg tackles, and Henry was just stiff arming them out of the way, saying, get out of here. Like that to me, that's the game plan. Give the ball to Derrick Henry. You have to be such a physical defensive front to be able to stop Derrick Henry consistently. And the Chargers had moments in the game where they did. They had moments in the game where, Henry was being tackled for losses or they read plays out. But for the most part, Derrick Henry did a great job of getting to the second level, picking up that head of steam. And Derrick Henry is the most dangerous when he's able to go out there and get to the second level, get to the third level and break one, because the more speed and the more momentum that Derrick Henry picks up over the course of this game or the course of any game, the more deadly he is. So I thought it was a great game from the Ravens on the ground. And again, despite moments where Todd Monken and the offense weren't using him when he was cooking, I thought that they got back to it in the second half, and that's what it is. The Ravens are a second half team. Honestly, the Ravens are a third quarter team, what we're going to call it here. The Ravens are a third quarter sometimes, but generally not a fourth quarter team. The Ravens are a third quarter team. That's what I'm going to say. Late, almost like second quarter to end of third quarter. That's the Ravens' sweet spot because they start slow. Sometimes they end slow and they can't finish games, but then you get into that sweet spot of like second, third quarter, and that is where you go if you're the Ravens and your sweet spot, your success zone. So really interesting that Baltimore still just gets off to these slow starts offensively. Then you have Zay 5 for 62, Mark 5 for 44 in that score, Rashad 2 for 43. Yeah, not like a big stats day, but the Ravens still put up 30 points. Lamar throws for 177. The Ravens still put up 30 points. So that's what it is. Now defensively, look, I think a lot of people saw the start from Malik Harrison in this game, myself included, and said, all right, going to be a long day for this defense. Going to be a long day for Malik Harrison without Roquan Smith being the anchor or one of the anchors of that defense. I think Malik Harrison finished the game as one of the best, if not the best player on the field for the Ravens on Monday night, which shout out to Malik, man. I mean, look, it was a tough start. We weren't seeing crazy. We weren't being crazy out there. Malik had some tough plays early in the game, but I thought that he responded really well. That whole linebacker group, I thought Chris Board had a great game. I thought that linebacker group rallied, right? I thought they did. And look, I love it when players go out there and either prove me wrong or, make me eat tweets or eat words or whatever. A lot of people were being harsh on Malik Harrison early in this game. They needed him to step up and play well in the absence of Roquan. But I thought that Malik did a great job of establishing his physicality as the game went on and punishing. I thought the linebacker core punished people, Chris Board and Malik Harrison in particular. So I really thought, and I see all up and down in the comments, shout out to Chris Board. Malik showed up. Yeah, 100%, 1,000%. That is something that this team needed. And so Malik finishes with 13 tackles, led the team by a wide margin. Nate Wiggins finishes second on the team with 6 tackles, and he had a bunch of big pass breakups on Josh Palmer, and they tested him deep in this game. And while Justin Herbert was not making very effective throws deep, 20 plus yards down the field, Nate Wiggins did hold his own, and I thought Nate played really well. Well, the Ravens secondary played really well. You look at the Chargers stats here. I don't think Justin Herbert played a very good game. He made some plays. He extended plays. He knew when to step up in the pocket and found guys. And it's not all on Justin, obviously. I do want to put that out there. Quentin Johnston was the worst player on the field tonight. The worst player. And we all need to be sending, I hope we all can gather around here and rally as Ravens people. We can send a gift basket over to the Chargers facility for them drafting Quentin Johnston over Zay Flowers in the 2023 draft. They had the opportunity. Only Jackson Smith-Njigba was gone. They had their pick between Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, and Quentin Johnston, and they picked the wrong guy. Quentin Johnston has had a resurgent year in Los Angeles this season. I'm not saying he hasn't, but he almost single-handedly lost the Chargers multiple different scores on multiple different possessions and was really bad. Finished the game, 5 targets, no catches for no yards. That's how bad he was. Yep, Maximilian, I agree with this. That first drop changed the game. It did. And Justin Herbert missed a couple of reads on that play that he tried to get the ball to Josh Palmer early in the game. It was 7-0 Chargers at the time. Well, he had Josh Palmer running right across his face, but he made a decision because he saw the Ravens pressure and he couldn't get the ball out, or he got the ball out too quickly, and he misses on a wide open touchdown opportunity, and they have to settle for 3. So essentially they leave 14 points on the board and they get 3, I believe. I don't think any points came out of the Johnston drive. Maybe it was another field goal. So they left either 11 or 8 points on the board in a 7-point loss. So, yeah, thank you to Los Angeles for taking Quentin Johnston over Zay Flowers. But I thought that the Ravens defense stepped up big time. And look, I'll say it. Chargers offense, well, I don't think they're as good as they've shown. They haven't really played a bunch of good teams this season, especially, defensively. I don't think that defense is as good either. But the Chargers offense is a lot better than Pittsburgh's offense. And Baltimore, aside from that crazy last possession, and things get weird on those last possessions, Ravens defense stepped up and did their job. So Ravens pick up a big, big win. And coming up in the second part of the show, we'll talk about just why this is an AFC changing win for the Baltimore Ravens. So be sure to stay tuned. Lots to get to on this edition live on Locked On Ravens. Don't go anywhere. First, this show is brought to you by Skylight Frames. And if you come from a big family like myself, it can be really hard and expensive to buy each one a personal gift for the holidays. There are a lot of people and it's a lot of planning that goes on and planning to celebrate the holidays with your friend group. And you want to surprise them all, something a bit more special and meaningful. it's a lot because I have a lot of family. There are a lot of people I want to get gifts for, and I don't really know where to look. We've got the perfect gift for you because Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. You can upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. Setup takes less than 60 seconds, and there's seamless sharing. Invite your friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. No account or subscription is required. And the touchscreen, it's a game changer. You can swipe through photos, tap to see new photos sent, tap the heart button to say thank you to the sender as well. And the gift mode makes it very meaningful. It's a personalized gift to you. You can preload it with memories without opening the box. Surprise them with old sentimental photos as soon as it's plugged in. Now is a special limited time offer for our listeners. Get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/NFL. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/NFL. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/NFL. And you can go again one more time at skylightframe.com/NFL. And this show is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats for live play-by-play and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We're back our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Ostreicher here with you, coming up on midnight on what technically will be Tuesday morning. Just a couple of days away from Thanksgiving. And of course, I'm thankful to everybody who has tuned in to the show, watched, listened, however you decide to consume our content here on Locked On Ravens. I really do appreciate it. You know, we've grown this show. When I took it over back in 2019, before the season started then, it was inactive for 6 months. The listener base was, all but depleted. And we've grown this into such an amazing community, amazing communities. Obviously, audio forms we started off. Video form came a couple years later. Social media has been incredible. And so I can't express my thanks for everybody who has supported me alongside this journey. And look, I put everything I can into doing this, and hopefully everybody enjoys, and we're growing and learning every single day. Every single day. I mean, I had a 103.1 fever on Saturday. I was down and out. I'm still down and out right now. I got something going on and it's gotten better, but I'm obviously not all the way better yet. So couldn't do a bonus episode on Sunday, Sunday morning. I recorded it in the morning. We put it out, but man, it's a grind, and I absolutely love doing this, especially after wins, right? Victory Tuesdays are always fun, and that's exactly what we have going on. Well, in about 9 minutes, it'll be Victory Tuesday. We're 11:51 p.m. right now. But I want to talk a bit more about how I think this is a big AFC changing win for the Ravens in terms of the standing and just how the AFC finishes out in general. Now, the Chiefs obviously are the big one here, and I'll pull up the standings so we have reference. But in terms of who the Ravens have actually beaten this season in the way that tiebreakers will actually work out, there's a lot to like about Baltimore's standing right now. Now, obviously, the Ravens have the tiebreaker over Los Angeles head-to-head. The Ravens moved 8-4. Los Angeles falls to 7-4. So Baltimore, at the time that we're recording this, they move into the 5 seed. Now, why is that important? Because at this point, I don't see a way the Ravens lose the 5 seed if they do not, if they go out there and they don't win the North, right? If Pittsburgh somehow takes it from them, if they stay in the driver's seat and they have that, the Chargers, I think, they're facing some more tough offenses. I think they're going to slip up a little bit. I think that the 5 seed is the best case scenario for the Ravens. Why? Well, the Houston Texans are all but locked into that 4 seed. Houston has been disastrous this season. They're 7-5. They just lost to Tennessee. If I'm the Ravens, I'm feeling great about going to Houston and beating that team. CJ Stroud is at a second-year slump. The offensive line over there is terrible. They're dealing with some injuries on the defensive side of the ball as well. Jalen Petrie is a huge loss for them, depending on how long he's out. You pick up this win against Los Angeles. If they had lost this game, the Chargers are all but locked into that 5 seed because they're not catching Kansas City, especially not now. But now that you win and you have that tiebreaker, hey, that Houston game is super intriguing, especially because if you lose the North, you don't want to be going to Pittsburgh for the wild card round just because of how weird those games are. And of course, how weird the Ravens play the Steelers in general. Like, that's not a game that you want to go and like, okay, I'd feel decently confident in the Ravens, but not that confident because, I mean, what have we hit history, right? Is that the game Lamar gets over the hump? It's a big one. I'd rather play Houston than Pittsburgh, personally, even though I think that despite all of the struggles that Houston has gone through, I mean, in my opinion, that's a game where Houston's offense is better than Pittsburgh's offense, but man, I just don't trust the Ravens against the Pittsburgh team. So now you look at the actual AFC North standings. You look at how it is right now. And Pittsburgh is at 8-3. They've obviously had their bye. Baltimore is at 8-4. Baltimore is 1.5 games out of the division right now because obviously Pittsburgh has the tiebreaker. The game that Baltimore will play against Pittsburgh in Baltimore in a few weeks will determine the winner of the AFC North. That is how I foresee this going. That's how I foresee it going. If Pittsburgh had beaten Cleveland or if Baltimore had lost to Los Angeles, you would have to find another game, another week in the schedule where you could flip-flop wins versus losses with the Steelers. But Jameis Winston did that for you. Now, he also ended up beating the Ravens, and that's just super unfortunate. But I feel like Baltimore's going to win that game against the Steelers. That's my hunch. I feel like Baltimore's going to win that game against the Steelers, and I feel like Baltimore's going to win the AFC North. That's my bold prediction. My bold prediction is that Baltimore will win the AFC North. That Pittsburgh offense is not good. It's not good. Pittsburgh defense is good. But in my opinion, the Ravens offense, man, it's just so difficult because, like, you think this Ravens offense is going to go out there and crush the Steelers, and then the Steelers come back and do their thing. But I would much rather play Houston personally than Pittsburgh. But here's the other thing. We're not done with this yet. We're not done with this. We're not taking the Chiefs into account. All right? We're not doing that. But it's weird because Buffalo has the head-to-head tiebreaker over Kansas City. So if Kansas City drops a game and Buffalo wins another game, well, now you have both teams at 10-2, and Buffalo flip-flops for the 1 seed. But if that doesn't happen, and Kansas City pulls away with their one loss, their voodoo magic and whatever, well, now, with Buffalo, if you can now get in the driver's seat in the North, and you can win and get that, and Buffalo falters a little bit, well, the 2 seed is still in play for the Ravens now because Buffalo doesn't have the tiebreaker against the Ravens like the Chiefs do. So there's a realistic possibility that the Ravens can get the 2 seed if Buffalo loses 2 games and the Ravens can fill that. Now you look at Buffalo's schedule: San Francisco, Rams, Detroit, New England, Jets, New England. So we're just going to throw away those 3 at the end there. Those are probably 3 Buffalo wins unless an upset happens. And that's not impossible. But week 16, 17, and 18, that New England sandwich with the Jets in the middle, that's pretty tough, right? But San Francisco, despite not having Brock Purdy and despite looking not so great recently, well, that's a primetime game, and maybe they lose that. Right? I mean, they just got absolutely blown out by the Packers this week. So I'm not necessarily uber confident in that. The schedule's definitely not in the Ravens' favor there. But if it is the 2 seed, let's just imagine it happens. If it is the 2 seed, would you feel confident in Baltimore playing the Broncos, the Dolphins? I know we all love to fall into the Bengals trap. I'm not falling into it. Bengals are done. I'm not falling into it. So Broncos, Dolphins, those are the teams I'm kind of putting in that 7 seed conversation. Now, the big thing about the 2 seed, and I see a lot of people talking about, not having the 2 seed, right? I see it. A lot of different people in the chat are talking about it. The big thing with the 2 seed is just how confident are you in the Ravens winning home playoff games, right? Because if you're the 2 seed, you get 2 of them. You get the first one, and then if you win that one, you get the other one. And then obviously there's potential for a third if the 1 seed loses. If you're the 5 seed, that's the underdog story, right? You're the wild card team. Everybody's counting you out. Right? You got to go on the road and play most of the games unless some crazy upset happens and AFC Championship gets wild. Well, do you like the underdog Ravens or do you like the favorite Ravens? I think a lot of people would talk about the underdog Ravens as that's how the Ravens have won their championships and with no target on their back. I mean, look, I'll tell you, a historic offense will always have a target on their back. Lamar Jackson now will always have a target on his back. That's just how it goes. So let's do a little poll here. I'm not going to that's not like an actual YouTube poll, but let's in the chat. Would you rather have the 2 seed or the 5 seed? If you're live with us on YouTube, put it in the chat. If you're in the comments after the fact on YouTube, put it in the comments. And if you're with us in audio form, be sure to message me on social media. 5 seed or 2 seed? 2 seed or 5 seed? Which would you prefer? And if there's another seed you like, I see Maximilian saying the 3 seed. If you like the 3 seed, if you like the 4 seed, if you like the 5 seed, if you like the 6, whatever it may be, if you like the 1, I don't think a lot of people will be talking about the 1 seed though. But let's see. See a bunch of 2 seeds, couple of 5 seeds. I see people talking about the home field advantage. Man, I'm getting a lot of voice cracks with this sickness. I apologize for that. I'm really trying to work through it. I'm really trying to do it. But I see, yeah, all right, just a bit outside saying whatever avoids Pittsburgh. I know the Pittsburgh Kansas City Demons are certainly real. Kamal saying we'll get too comfortable at 2. I'd rather have the 5. Caleb saying 2 is a must. Home field advantage in the playoffs is so huge. So multiple trains of thought here. I personally am of the mindset that home field advantage is still really key. I get that history has not been very kind to Baltimore in those situations recently. I understand 1 seed has certainly given some people some skittishness in terms of getting that home field advantage, but I do think it's important. But at the end of the day, look, Maximilian said it all depends on the matchup. So Karen talking about 5 avoids Pittsburgh. At this stage, it would, and I'm pretty positive Houston's going to be locked into that 4 seed. And no playoff game is a lock win for you, right? No playoff game is a lock. Playoffs are a whole new season. But that Houston team looks vulnerable, and I'd be pretty confident in Baltimore, especially if we see a Christmas Day game on Netflix. Look, on Netflix, I don't know if we're going to see anything. We might just see a red circle loop the entire time with how it was lagging during that Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight. But if we see the Ravens blow out Houston on Christmas Day, that would make me feel even more confident. But coming up in the final part of the show, we'll keep talking about this. Ravens, we'll talk about the win against the Chargers more, obviously. We'll talk about potential playoff matchups because this all relates back into one another. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot to get to on this live edition of Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Hillsdale College, and time is the most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free online courses, including Constitution 101, Introduction to Free Market Economics, and so much more. They have a course on the Great American Story and a lot more than that. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. We're back, rounding out Locked On Ravens Live. Kevin Oestreicher still here with you, grinding it out. Ravens win 30-23. Big win for the Ravens. And, of course, as I am doing this, I'm trying to peruse through Twitter, social media, see everything that is going on here, and talking about if anything has been said by John Harbaugh, by Lamar Jackson, and obviously a lot was made of the Harbaugh, right, with John and Jim, and Malik Harrison kind of saying that, oh, hey, heard a bunch of people doubting him coming into the game without Roquan, and look, Malik had a tough start, but had a very, very strong finish. And Lamar Jackson saying he trusts his receivers, right? Really good, giving them opportunities, which is awesome. So really, really big win. Baltimore moves to 8-4. And when you talk about the playoff seedings and playoff situations, could mean a lot. We might be looking back on this down the line and saying how important this is. Man, I've been voice cracking a lot, man. I'm dealing with something sickness-wise. Everybody knows the story by now if you've been listening. 103.1 fever on Saturday. I was down bad. But we grind through. I'm kind of getting through it by being really energetic, but how can you not be energetic after a Ravens win, right? We are now Victory Tuesday, officially 12:03 a.m. I want to shout out the Ravens defense a little bit more. I know we kind of talked about the offense a lot in the first part of the show. We snuck a little bit of defensive conversation in there as well. But I do want to shout out the defense because we have to give credit here where it's due to a unit that has really struggled to find identity over the course of the season, has struggled with secondary mishaps, penalties, missed calls, poor coaching at times. In these past 2 games, they've started to find their stride again. Now, was it perfect? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There are still things they have to work on. When you look at some of the team stats, and we can talk about those, is some things that the Ravens do have to work on in terms of getting off the field a little bit better on third down. Over the course of the game, that got better. But it seemed like the Chargers were getting anything they wanted earlier in the game on third down. So you look at the final stats, 5 for 14, just over 33%. That's fine. You take that generally 9 times out of 10. Baltimore was better, going 8 for 15. That's over 50%. Chargers had a really tough time stopping the Ravens offense, getting off the field. And you want to know the best part about this? John Harbaugh, 3 for 3 on fourth down, including from his own 16-yard line. And I'm telling people, when that happened and it went to commercial and everything, I'm sitting there and I'm saying they're going for this thing. I was not shocked whatsoever. I mean, have we seen John Harbaugh? Have we watched the same coach? This guy's going for it and crazy. John Harbaugh, if the time comes, he'll go for it anywhere. And that's kind of what he said in his halftime interview. He's like, how far backed up were we? I just felt like we could get it. He just felt like we could get it. Doesn't matter where he is. Just felt like he could get it. Now, we're having a very different conversation if Mark doesn't get that call. Or, yeah, if Mark doesn't get the first down. We're having a very different conversation about John Harbaugh. That's a fireable offense if Mark doesn't get it, right? Like, we're having 2 different conversations. But the absolute guts on that guy, John Harbaugh, man, that is just unreal. So 3 for 3 on fourth down, and all three came in critical situations, and it resulted in points for the Ravens and ultimately resulted in wins. Now, when you go back to the defensive side of the ball, I think you like what you see from guys like Ardarius Washington, Trey White, Marlon Humphrey had a good game, right? Kyle Hamilton doing his thing. And this Ravens defensive front had the Chargers offensive line absolutely on the struggle bussing. This Ravens defensive line, we were seeing holding penalties left and right. They were getting quick pressure on Justin Herbert. You look at these stats, the Ravens 4 sacks on the day, and a couple were negated due to penalty. But I'll also shout out the Ravens offensive line because they did a really good job of protecting Lamar Jackson. Joey Bosa, irrelevant in this game. Khalil Mack had 1 nice play on the edge against Lamar. And also, I mean, I think that was it. Want to talk about sacks? Sacks? 1. It was Derwin James, and it wasn't really a sack. He's credited with 1, but it wasn't really a sack. 1 sack for the Chargers with an offense in the Ravens that we know if you just let Lamar sit back there and do his thing, or if you can run block well for Derrick Henry, that's what it is. That's how they can beat you. Now, there were times in the game where the Ravens put themselves back. First of all, leg whip? We're talking about leg whips? Are you kidding? It hit Bud Dupree what? On the quad? Hit him on the quad, barely. And they're calling that a 15-yard penalty on a play, and that sets them back, and that ends that possession. Now, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous, right? Pastor McCary had another penalty. Yep, that he did. But this was just an overall solid game with some stuff they have to clean up, right? I'm not really complaining a bunch about this game. Penalty, sure, you got to clean it up. Some other things, right? Some middle of the field stuff, some third down stuff you got to clean up. But I'm just kind of like, okay, that's a solid win. I'm not really complaining about anything here. So, I mean, when's the last time you like that? A leg whip is a penalty, but usually it's like it's a very deliberate thing and a guy trips. Ricard was falling. It was his natural body movement. And Dupree was barely effective, if at all, by it. And Rick, yeah, did you see the look on Pat's face? Like, well, he's like, are you kidding me? Really? We're doing this? But that's just been the story for the Ravens. Again, another 9 penalties. You can't have it. Just seems like there's a flag, and there were some that were even picked up in this game. And John, I think, yeah, appreciate this. The only leg whip penalty all year, according to John. And yeah, it just. You see the one, this is a very good point, Spirit Bomb. You see JOK with the kick. He literally flew out and kicked him on Lamar, and there was no call on that. But okay, we're calling leg whip penalties. All right. Okay. All right. Whatever. Whatever. The Ravens won the game, so I guess it's no harm, no foul. But again, why are we calling those penalties? So overall, I thought a very solid and sound game for Baltimore. Some stuff you got to clean up, but pick up a big win, move to 8-4. And we have a lot of content coming for you. If I can even speak with these voice cracks, I hope I'll get better over the course of the next couple of days, especially because Thanksgiving is coming up. But we'll talk about everything. We'll talk about the storylines, headlines, and of course, Baltimore has a really big game against Philadelphia. Derrick Henry versus Saquon, or as many call him, Saquads Barkley, on the horizon at M&T Bank Stadium. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. I guess I should say tonight on Locked On Ravens. Be sure on the way out, hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube in video form. Follow along and subscribe in audio form as well. We'll be back here 6 a.m. Eastern time, really in under 6 hours here, talking about everything, some new headlines that have popped up over the course of the last couple of minutes. And of course, as we head into the wee hours of the morning, I'll be up grinding it out, bringing you that content. So be sure to be right back here 6 a.m. tomorrow. And we'll be talking all Ravens as we always do. So again, I appreciate all the support. Super thankful to all the communities we have here. I'll see you right back here tomorrow or later today on Locked On Ravens.